So today I thought I would start kind of a collection of videos. What lessons can we learn from the Ten Commandments? And you might think, well, how do the Ten Commandments have anything to do with psychology? And the reality is just about everything in life has to do with psychology, because psychology is about the mind and how the mind works and how we can improve it and look for answers in Scripture. Definitely, we find answers in all of Scripture, including the Ten Commandments. So this first video is on the first two commandments. I thought I would combine them because have no other gods before me and make no graven images or have no idols. I think they're very similar in terms of the lessons we want to learn from them in regards to psychology and how we can apply them to our lives to have improved mental health. So, I mean, the first and obvious part of these two commandments is it's an acknowledgement that God is first in our life. And when we put God first, it means we are in tune with Him. We have to have that connection with Him, because it's pretty hard to put Him first if we don't know what He wants, what His will is. So it's a very loaded commandment, and I think sometimes we look at it and go, oh yeah, that's simple, I'll put God first. But then when life comes our way and we have to make choices like whether or not to buy a new house or just rent so that we don't have to have a big debt, or maybe we don't even have money to rent and we're on the street, but what town would be a good place to live in if I don't have much for means, and all these kind of practical decisions, looking for God's will can be a little more difficult. We have to look for providence. How is God leading us? We have to look at our own skills and resources. What do we have available? And all of these require self-reflection and surrender and openness, which are all important character traits which relate to psychology very well. So I think that that's the most obvious example of how this commandment affects us in our everyday life. And when we really understand what it means to put God first, it means self has to take a back seat. And that has a lot to do with psychology. Really effective cognitive behavior therapy, for example, forces you to consider how you're feeling may not be evidence of truth, right? So just because I feel a certain way does not mean that's true. I could feel like God doesn't love me, but I know from Scripture that He does, and so I can choose to look at that and go, I know He loves me, even though some days I just don't feel it. I don't feel His presence. And so I think that is another life lesson we can learn from the first of the two Ten Commandments. And the second one, of course, idolatry. And that one is specifically about graven images, but I think it relates to all idolatry, which is where we have something that's consuming in our lives. And that could be a habit, an addiction, like, overeating or alcohol or something else, but can also be a pet idea and something we don't want to give up. And that is definitely a challenge when you're looking at mental health, because again, if we're getting back to how the mind works, that we have thoughts, and those thoughts trigger emotions for us, and they influence our choices. And so we can have thoughts like, well, I'm not good enough, and they're really related to self, but they're very self-deprecating. And so modern psychology would say, oh, well, we can look at tools to give you better self-esteem. Whereas Christian psychology goes, I am broken, but that's okay, because Jesus came to save the broken and the lost. And really, it's better if I acknowledge I'm broken, because now I'm an empty vessel and I can let God fill me. And I can let God be first in my life and let Him direct me what will be the best for me. So I hope that that was helpful for you. Again, I would love it if you could subscribe, and you can click the notifications. Let me know in the comments below any comments, criticisms, questions. Just please be kind, because we're all real people with real problems and real feelings. Thank you for watching.